Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and I'm super excited to have you all here today. We are going to talk about my hits and my misses of 2021. Hopefully you've seen the recap video of everything that I made, and if not, I will link it up above in the cards and of course in the description box below. So join me in the next section to figure out how I got on with all of my makes in 2021. So I think it's important to begin by just telling you what all I actually made. In the year 2021, I made 33 completed garments, complete-ish, okay? And the breakdown for those include 3 selfless sewing makes, so those were non-garment items, 15 dresses, I made 3 skirts, and 3 outerwear or topper-like makes, in addition to 8 tops and 1 jumpsuit. So I'm really excited about all of those makes, and not all of them are with me here today. They're in my closet somewhere in storage. So I will have to insert some clips for you of the ones that aren't present. So I'm going to alternate between some of the hits and misses. So let's dive in. First up, let's start with a hit. A dress that I think has tons of potential. So I went ahead and utilized S8888, actually twice last year. So the first time I used it was with this white eyelet thrifted fabric that I had, and I made a beautiful sundress for my vacation collection. I really enjoyed this pattern, and all I could think is how awesome these design lines are and how they are just itching to be used in a hacking pattern. You can do some color blocking, you can really expand on the basic outline of this garment. While I really liked my white eyelet version, the fact that it had eyelets on it and made it a little bit more see-through and it was white, I didn't get to wear it a ton last year. I also need to go back in and add some slits in the sides just so walking is a bit easier. But again, this pattern is one that I loved for all of the potential that it houses. I used it again when I made a wedding guest dress out of this beautiful pink Ankara fabric, and I got to attend one of my great friends' weddings, and it just showed me the versatility of this. Because it has these awesome princess seams for the bodice, it makes it such a nice fit, and I love that in my garment. So I know that I'll be revisiting this pattern for quite some time. Now let's talk about a miss. I tried out Butterick B6664. I sort of hacked it. I'm going to link the red collection down below. The garment that I made with that is this awesome blouse. Now, I didn't have enough fabric and ended up going with this sort of maroon fabric in the back panel. As you can see, the back closure doesn't have a closure. And also the sleeves also do not have a closure. I never actually went in and added the buttons. The interfacing I used in the cuff, you can see how it's sort of wrinkling the fabric a little bit on the insides. Instead of going in with that same maroon, at least to keep it continuous, right? I went in with this sort of like poly lining fabric, and it just peeks through whenever I'm trying to close it. I've never actually worn this garment out aside from the video that I took for the red collection. So either I'm just gonna put some snaps on it and give it a try and wear it to work one of these days, because I was in love with this print. I had bought maybe 3 to 4 different types of fabrics just to make this print work. I only had a yard of it left, which wasn't enough to cut out the entire sort of inner lining piece of this pattern, which is what I used for this top, front and back yoke, as well as this center panel. All right, so you can see it's quite creased. It's just been sitting in a little cubby hole since I've made it. So that for me was a little bit of a miss, and it really hurt just because of how much I love that fabric and the fact that I've never actually worn it. So I'm gonna give it a try and see what I can do, but I really think that I should have been more thoughtful of what pattern I was using and tried to lay out my pattern pieces before just beginning the cutting process. I might have noticed that there wasn't enough and could have pivoted or tried to find a different pattern at that stage. Now I used this fabric twice actually. The biggest fail of this pattern for me, and it has nothing to do with the pattern. This was just my execution of it and just a vision unmet, okay? It's this red dazzling number, and I wish that I had completed it and it met my vision, because how stunning would this be as a Valentine's Day top? Stunning, okay? So I only had, maybe under a yard of this gorgeous red lace fabric. I had picked it up years ago from Joann's. Couldn't even tell you why it was in my stash, but I knew that I wanted to use it within the red collection, and thus I went ahead and cut out B6664. Now the thing was, I didn't have enough of that fabric to do the sleeve, so I thought, no worries, use this awesome organza, but it was so sheer that I needed to then line it with something. So I had this sort of red, stretch lining fabric, and I went ahead and used that. But as you can see, it's not that flattering, and I hated the way that it looked. Now I was going to go back in and try and like scrunch it maybe here where the lining ends, and that way you don't really see it as defined and maybe it would look nice. But I didn't have the heart to do it. I was so disheartened as this make was kind of coming together. The back, the way that they have you close it or the way that I chose to close it, I'm not sure which one, just has this like gap. It will not meet in the center. And I never finished it. The sort of pie crust collar that I tried to do didn't sit well on the neckline. I never even finished these side seams. However, as far as construction and really building up my skill sets, I feel like I did a really great job. Everything in this garment was beautifully French seamed. From the arm side to the actual pieces and putting them together. That might be why I had a bit of fiddly bits from this portion right here laying flat, but I'm really proud of the construction. I just need to find a way to make this garment work. And there you have it, folks. Another garment in my UFO pile. Another win is this B6705. I made it twice last year, but really the one that takes the cake is this gorgeous beauty right here. I used this amazing subtropic print from Mood Fabrics online. This is a wonderful sustainable viscose fabric, and I bought it in both colorways because it was that decadent. Look at this fabric. All of these colors were just so rich and vibrant. The fabric is so cool and light and airy, and I made this in my early fall makes, and it is a stunner. I'm not going to go into sizing and all of that. I will definitely link all of those collections and the reveal videos if you want those specifics. Right now we're just talking about the hits and the misses and what made it amazing. I think the silhouette is gorgeous. It feels so feminine and flirty, and I just feel so classy and elegant every time I wear it. I hacked the sleeves and did this awesome sort of shearing detail in both sleeves, so it gives this awesome balloon effect. You have this amazing umpire waistline that reaches a peak in the center, and I borrowed a design feature from a dress that I love, which will be forthcoming, and I added this awesome dramatic ruffle to the bottom. So seeing a pattern that I could hack and be able to just really make it a standout dress, and the use of these patterns and this fabric, I think is what made this a hit. I've worn it even throughout this winter. I just layer it, and once I'm in the building for work, I feel awesome, and I just float around the whole day. So it makes me feel really awesome, and that's what makes it a hit in my books. All right, now we're gonna go to a miss. I used this simplicity pattern, S9225. Now I made this dress twice. The first time I made it actually was for one of my friend's weddings, and I did roughly view A for the most part. I did some hacks. It was this awesome pink and light blue fabric that I picked up. I called it affectionately my birthday fabric because I had found it at G Street Fabrics on my birthday in 2020. So I had made it that time, and I think that dress is a real winner. So when I was gearing up for my vacation collection in the summer, I needed to make a really quick dress. So I used the bodice of that to kind of roughly cut out this awesome sherbety, like lime green pebble print. that I also picked up in the dead stock fabric at G Street. So look at, here's the true color of it. Oh, now here's why this is a miss. I had such visions for what this fabric could do. It was supposed to be like a Grecian goddess dress. I wanted it to have a wonderful cowl neckline. I just thought the drape of this needed to be on display and work some magic. And I just remember looking at that plans video for my vacation collection and seeing the joy on my face, and this dress just did not cut it. I sort of used the bodice for just a basic outline of what I wanted the neck to do. I was running low on time as I was sewing the vacation collection because I made 4 garments and in a week. And I then didn't want to do a full zipper, so I just kind of did this keyhole neckline. It had sleeves. I have since removed it. It also had shearing, which I have also since removed because I am going to redeem this fabric. It deserves to be something beautiful that I love to wear and reach for time and time again, and I know it has potential. It will need to be something with raglan sleeves because that is already determined, and I only had a really small amount of this fabric. I think maybe just under 2 yards, if not a little bit more than 2 yards, right? So it wasn't a ton to be working with, and I did want to get a dress out of it. But when I look back, it was really me being rushed and feeling like I had to commit to doing something where really I didn't even end up taking this dress on that vacation, and I could have just spared it and revisited this fabric with a really concrete idea of what I could make and make sure it was something that I was going to love. And that taught me a really big lesson on not rushing. Like, what was the purpose of that, right? So I will try and redeem this dress. But again, this pattern has served me well. I think it was more design, rushing, and trying to make this work. I think it can be much more. Next up, as a win, I want to show you S8982. This pattern might not be very new to many of you, but I love how hackable it is. If you've been watching this space and watching this channel, you might know that honestly, I take my ideas and I look for the patterns that will give me a really solid foundation, but I am not afraid of putting my own spin on things. And that's exactly what I did with this dress. I used View A to make this stunner dress out of this stretch burnout velvet that I got from the clearance section at Joann's, and it was exceptional. I wore it to one of my good friend's bridal showers, or her sort of like nighttime version of the bridal shower, the bachelorette party, if you will, like a dinner, and it was fantastic. I felt super dressed up and just like, I used elastic in the side seams as well as the center front to get a really awesome ruched effect by just lengthening the bodice and the bottom of this dress, and then added a really cool ruffle to the bottom. You know I love a good ruffle. You know this. So I think this is a winner, and I can see myself returning to this time and time again. As far as a fail, let's go to S8746. So in the red collection, I was actually tapped to do a program with a young girl who was in high school and wanted to kind of learn the ins and outs of fashion design. So I was in the leg that would actually work on creating and sewing a garment from scratch. And I loved being a part of her journey and learning how to sew. She was a novice, and we got to really take her under our wing, and someone kind of worked with her on understanding patterns and pattern design and helping her create and curate a really fabulous vision for the garments that she wanted, and helped her select this pattern. And then I took the baton and actually sewed this garment along with her. She made this beautiful lilac sateen version. And because I was in the middle of my red collection, I wanted to make sure that I can make a garment that was going to just like do all of the things, right? To kind of fit in with the rest of the collection. So I had this sort of mauve, sort of dusty rose pink colored rayon challis, or just rayon fabric. I don't really know if it's rayon challis or just rayon. Who knows? but I used it, and honestly, I know there are some rayon chalets that can work as a bottom weight. Trust me, I know. But this one really had a very light hand, and I don't think that it was the most suitable thing to make the skirt out of. And while I pre-washed it, upon washing it another time, it shrunk up in its length so much that it wasn't the midi length skirt that I had originally cut. And therefore, I really didn't wear it. I was always nervous that the whole skirt was just gonna flip open and just expose me. So I never actually wore it out as much as I was hoping to. Also, rayons, if you sweat or anything, it kind of stains and it shows, and it was a solid color, and it just wasn't the best fit for a bottom, like a skirt. So I will actually be utilizing and reusing that fabric as maybe lining, as bodices for other makes in the future, because it would be really nice, especially if I'm making something maybe with polyester, to kind of line it with that really crisp and cool rayon on the inside. So that fabric will be utilized because it's gorgeous, but I just don't think that this was the right thing to pair it with. Well, let's talk about another winner, okay? Let's talk about McCall's M7974. This is a more recent make. I made it in December, and it quickly climbed up the charts for me as a dress that I can honestly see myself making again and again. It's phenomenal. How don't you love something like this? It's so flirty and feminine. I think there's a theme of the things that I like. But it makes me feel awesome. I followed the sewing tutorial, or the sew along that was posted by Sean from Kittenish Behavior, and she has you sort of line the entire bodice, French seam the entire skirt. I made it out of a thrifted black linen and used these beautiful sort of gold enveloped beautiful black buttons that were also thrifted, and it just was a merge of just awesome things that I had received. And I mean, what more can I say? It felt really good. I was practicing with my new baby, my new machine, putting in buttonholes and sewing in buttons, so it made me slow down and use needle and thread. I slip stitched the inner bodice lining to the skirt. Like, who was I? Evolving? Look at me, right? Getting very serious about my sewing and taking that quiet time, watching a YouTube video, just slip stitching my bodice down. It really showed me that I was becoming a lot more intentional about my making, and I loved that the insides look so impeccable. I could wear that dress inside out if I wanted to, guys. I could do it. That's all I want to say. So this dress will certainly be in rotation, and I cannot wait to get to it again this year. All right, we're down to the biggest miss and also the biggest win. So let's dive into what I think was my biggest miss of this past year. You remember? Were you here back when? If you were here with me in the red collection days and saw the debacle that was S8955. Why? I didn't know why it had forsaken me so. I don't know why there were so many obstacles to a proper execution of this garment. I have no words for you. I used a thrifted maroon wool that I had in my stash, and I just so happened to have this luscious sateen fabric that was like, look at how they match. Could I have even planned that better myself? No. Look, it goes with my scarf. I could be wearing this right now had it not been such a disaster. First of all, if you didn't watch the vlog where I was making this, I opened up the pattern that I had. Do you know that there were I don't even know how to explain this. The pattern pieces inside, it didn't have all of the pattern pieces. There was a complete set of the pattern pieces, which included the sleeve and I think the back pattern piece that was missing. They had put 2 of the same pattern sheet folds in one envelope, and that happened to be the one that I took home with me. Then when I took it to the store to present it to them, the simplicity sale that I had purchased it in was no longer happening. They would not let me just do a clean swap. I had to purchase it for the full price, and my Lanta, I was not going to do that. So I just waited patiently. Sure enough, another simplicity sale came along and I repurchased the pattern, returned the old one, and here we are. The reason why this stung so bad was that I don't think this garment would have been such a hot mess if it weren't for the interfacing. Have you ever seen interfacing in your garment? The answer is no. You don't see interfacing in your garment. It is the inner workings of your garment, not even on display. And that was the part of this garment that sent it straight downhill. I had Helen interfacing purchased from Joann's. I'm not blaming Joann's, I'm just saying. And it was called Featherweight. In my review of this, I had a feather. This thing was like cardstock. Do you hear it? It was so disrespectful because it just shows. Now, I'm going to move on because we don't need to go to a negative place, okay? What you need to know is this. I do plan to redeem this coat, blazer, outer garment, and I think I'm just going to crop it. And I'm going to do my darndest to make it the most beautiful cropped coat, blazer, contraption that you've ever seen, and we will air it out and we will redeem this as well. And thus another make that goes into my UFO pile. It is long. I have some adventures ahead. Okay. But that was, I think, my biggest fail. I think outside of the interfacing being just not the proper thing to use, otherwise I feel like it was going somewhere. I had constructed my first outer garment. I was working with wool. I was pressing seams. I did this little doodad that you do, the little dart that comes in and makes the lapel lay flat. I had mixed two beautifully complementary garments that I did not purchase at the same time. The universe just did this for me, right? I was using Hong Kong seam finishes. And that just had to mess it all up. That's okay. We will redeem this blazer, and I cannot wait to show you when I do. I hope that you'll be proud of me because I'm already excited about it. Just not excited enough to like move it to the top of my list, but it will get made. And now we have the make of all makes of 2021. It's this one. S8875. I cannot tell you enough how much I adore this dress. It makes me feel like a princess. I made my initial dress during my vacation collection, and it was made out of this fantastic, blooming, beautiful, abundant, floral print rayon challis fabric that I picked up at G Street during one of their sales. It was in a bucket of other rayon challis at a reduced price, and I said, bring that here. I think I got 2.5 yards of it. This dress requires more than 2.5 yards, but I made it work. Yes, I did. That dress, I don't care where I was going in 2021, from the moment it was made, from the beaches of California, to the grocery stores of Maryland, to the graduation parties and the bridal showers that I attended all summer long, this dress was on repeat. I was afraid that some of the stitches and the seams were gonna pop. I wish that I had taken the time to carefully do some French seams, but as I said, 4 garments, 1 week for my vacation collection, that was not my priority. And also I had never made this pattern before, so I needed to know that it was gonna work. By golly, it worked. I ended up making another version of this dress as my birthday dress out of this beautiful green Ankara fabric that my mom had gotten me from her trip when she went back home to Guinea this past summer. And that also was a stunner. I wore it on my birthday, and it was also picture day at work. You've heard this story. You know I love it. I love it. So I think this is an absolute winner. And this was that ruffle detail that I borrowed and popped onto this here dress. So you know I love it. I'm just taking all the elements, putting it on other things. And I think I also use the sleeve of that on a ton of different patterns also. All right, so the things that I learned. I made a ton of dresses last year. So going into this year, I found it really funny that I hit the ground running in January and made 4 trousers, and I can see myself also making additional bottoms like skirts and other pants in the future. But I will say that I made a lot of dresses because I love wearing dresses, and I can definitely see myself making a ton more because they are easy breezy, one and done outfits and you're out the door. So I love that. I found that when I really paid attention to my seam finishings, I was so thrilled with the process. I also learned that things that even aren't seen in a garment matter. They are important. And therefore, I remember when I actually did my trip to the garment district in New York, the only thing that I bought in that whole world of amazing fabrics at great prices was interfacing. I purchased woven interfacing because I had never actually known that that was a real thing. I'm sure I know that they have them in Joann's and etc., but I never really cared about interfacing. I just wanted whatever was the cheapest and let me move on. But after this here blazer, I recognized that interfacing is important. It's the structure and the foundation of your garments. So that's something that I've started to invest in as well. Thinking about fabrics and how they feel on my skin and also how they make me feel in different elements, climates, and change of seasons. If I want something that's going to be a year-round garment, am I being mindful of the breathability of its contents? And it definitely gave me something to think about. I also thought more about lining my garments and making sure that everything was beautiful on the inside and not rough, not only so that it's aesthetically pleasing, but also so that it lasts. Sometimes I saw that when I wasn't as careful with my inner finishings for garments like made out of viscose or rayons, I would get a lot of fraying from all of that friction of movement. I have 2 young children, I'm moving around a lot, so that definitely is something that I am starting to take more and more account of, and I'm really enjoying that process. I also noticed that I would sew for occasions. I would do these massive weeks of sewing leading up to a vacation or getting ready for someone's wedding. And then I would have like months and stretches of time where I didn't sew anything, not because I didn't want to. And sometimes there were valid reasons. Work got really busy, family life, you know, my children or my family needed me a bit more. But often it's really just that I hadn't really found a place in my practice where I was being consistent and made time for it. So that when I did actually get to sewing, I felt like I had to make all of the things and make them really fast versus enjoying the process, looking and being mindful about how I finish my garments and taking the time to ask, how do I want to complete this? What fabric choice would be best? Should I move forward with something that I have in my stash, or is it worth going out and purchasing something specifically for this to make sure it's the best it can be? Now also, in terms of buying fabrics, it was my first time ever buying fabric online, and I purchased twice from Mood Fabrics online. I was able to really discern what a good fabric was because I had spent time touching fabrics, whether at Joann's or at G Street Fabrics. So that was really cool to kind of see that I was building up this understanding of garments and how different fabrics and their contents could really impact the final make. Another thing that I found really interesting about that entire thing is my actual fabric choices. I remember I would go into, especially G Street Fabrics, if you haven't heard me like harp about how much I love them, here it is for you. It's a fabulous store and I love them dearly, and my most treasured space within that store is their dead stock fabric room, where every fabric is $2.97 a yard. From the wools to the rayons to the crepes to the, you name it, it's outstanding. So if you go and you happen to be there on a great day, you are in luck and your pocketbook is gonna thank you. But all that to say, I would go in initially and think, I'm never gonna find better than this. Like, I'm lucky to have seen this. And I would just get fabrics, even if I had an inkling that maybe it wasn't the best fabric for me. And I would bring it into my stash and not really know what to do with it. It would just kind of sit and languish in there. Instead now, the more I actually started going, I would find fabrics in the future visit that I would say, oh, actually, this is much better than the thing I picked up, last month or a couple of months ago. So it really allowed me to recognize that there will always be more fabric. And sometimes there will often be better fabric. So don't just get something because you feel like you have to or because the price is right. Get the fabrics that you love. Those are the ones you're going to want to dig into. I've been really lucky to also thrift tons of great fabrics, so then I'm not afraid to toile my pieces. That's something that I hated doing and really don't like doing even now, but I'm okay doing them because I'm using fabrics that if the garment works, I have something that I will actually wear out of my house. I don't think that I will get down with the idea of making muslins out of muslin. I don't see that for myself. I don't know what to do with that muslin fabric when you're done. So I prefer the fact that I'm using actual fabric that I would use in the long run. All right, so I've waffled a lot. I've talked a lot at you. Oh my gosh, waffle. I watch a lot of awesome sewing YouTubers in the UK and it's showing. I have a lot of fabrics that I cut out and it never even saw the light of day or touch my sewing machine. They're just cut pieces. Who knows what they are? Okay, I think I'm going to save my UFOs for another day. Just give you a quick tour of those on another day, maybe in a Friday sews or something like that. But thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that some of my lessons learned would help you as well as we all try and just improve in our sewing practices together. Please leave a comment down below if some of my hits or misses were surprising to you, or if you remember some of them if you've been here for a while. And if you have any ideas on how I can salvage this beautiful red lace fabric, let me know. Have a wonderful day and stay creative. Bye-bye.